Hello and welcome, I am Geran and it's time for the PokéSins Season 1 wrap-up. This is essentially like a BTSF for the entirety of the first season, talking about what I liked, what I didn't like, the best episodes, the worst, what I learned, what I didn't learn, and my favourite jokes and episode. So, Season 1. They actually did some interesting stories with different Pokemon, which they sort of didn't have to do. They could have just followed the story of the games, but they did really go out and did interesting stories like Ghastly at Maiden's Peak, the Diglett protecting its valley, the whole Pikachu's goodbye. You really got to look at Pokemon in their natural ecosystem. It was interesting. Speaking of Pikachu, they definitely made the most of Pikachu being cute. The single best example of this for Pikachu himself is the ketchup bottle in Showdown Dark City. That was just phenomenally adorable. And the same with Jigglypuff. As a recurring Pokemon, they gave it a lot more personality than, to be honest, most of Ash's team got, especially in its first appearance in episode 45. They gave a lot of the recurring Pokemon, personality that, again, they didn't have to. Because, I mean, this was, I assume this was just originally a quick cash-in to tie in with the popularity of the games. But they actually did a lot more than a lot of cash-ins do. It's obvious that the people behind this did want to put some actual personality, some effort, some heart into this project. And it generally tried to give good moral lessons, but didn't feel the need to crowbar them into every single episode. Of course, they did sometimes completely mess up the lessons, bringing me to the worst things about the season. Some of the lessons they taught are insane. Dropping children out of helicopters. A-okay, apparently, if you love your wife. Yeah. Hypnosis for profit is okay if nobody knows. Misty's love advice for Butterfree. Just don't even get me started. Some of the things that they said are A-okay in this season are frankly criminal. And that is the sort of thing you would not get in... Well, I'm not even sure if you wouldn't get it in shows today. Kids shows these days are very different, and I still can't believe that I heard someone say crap in regular show. Is crap okay to say around kids now? Because it never used to be. Anyway, one of my biggest problems with this season is that Ash didn't catch enough. He caught, maybe 10 Pokemon throughout the entire thing? That's insane for how many he encountered. How many one-off ones that it's just like, oh look, here are a load of Diglett. I'm not going to bother trying to catch one. Hey look, Brock's caught a Zubat. I don't want one. We're encountering a load of Clefairy in a cave with a space rocket. I don't want a Clefairy, they're not rare or interesting at all. He had so many different opportunities that he just didn't even slightly follow through on. And to match that, he gave away too many Pokemon, or released them or whatever. To be honest, if he'd had a higher turnover, if he'd caught more, he could get away with giving away more. But he didn't, so he had very few Pokemon and gave a load of them away. At least Butterfree's exit made some sort of sense. I mean, they didn't have to add it at all, but the point is, there was a decent reason. It was part of its cycle. But Primeape, God. They add Primeape and then get rid of it, 2 episodes later? What was the bloody point? And the sad thing is that Primeape was one of the few that actually had personality. In addition, there was too much filler between the badges. If it had been better space, it's similar to the previous thing. If they'd handled it better, it wouldn't have been a problem, or at least it wouldn't have been as noticeable. But they had 25 episodes between badges 6 and 7. 25, that's over a quarter of the series, with nothing really going on. What happened? Why did they plan it so poorly? And the last 2... I'm not sure they're really complaints about this season in general, but as this is the opening season, this is where I'll sort of mention them. I hate the Jenny Joy gag. Why did they put that in? I assume it's because they wanted to address the fact that every Joy in the game is identical. But really? Yeah, did they have to make it so blatant? I really just no idea why. And the last thing is that Gary was too antagonistic. I don't mind him being the rival. I mean, he and Ash clearly have a history. From just their first interactions, you can tell they do have a past. However, he doesn't really serve as a rival. He's just someone who insults Ash every so often. If he had served as a proper rival, battling against him in their final match of the league, or a match in the league, or, let's be honest, a battle at any point in the entire 82 frickin' episodes, it would have been better. But no, instead they crowbarred in Knock Off Ash and made it out as this massive thing, and we got Richie. That sounds like I'm really down on Season 1. I watched Season 1 so much as a child that I knew a lot of these episodes incredibly well going in. And the fact that they've stuck with me is probably a lot of nostalgia, but also because, yeah, they do have some really good bits, and I do really like Pokemon Season 1. So this section is basically, how has my approach to PokéSins changed over the season? What, now at the end of the season, can I say that I learned about making PokéSins that I didn't know at the beginning? There are really two things I want to address in this. The Pokemon League rules. I will admit that when I first started using this joke, this line, this whatever, I misused it, like when Ash used his Pokemon to promote a restaurant back in episode 18. These days, I only consider it a minor when they're used in a battle, and specifically when one Pokemon actively battles more than one other. Also, I generally count it only against trainers, so while battles, they're a bit different because they are not in any way a league battle. However, I do count it against Team Rocket, because if I recall correctly, that's when he originally mentioned it. They were battling Team Rocket and refused to use more than one. I do count it... Actually, I'm not even sure. Do I count it when Team Rocket used more than one? I think I do. Yeah, I think I do. But think of it like this. Think of it in terms of cars. So the league rules are the country's laws on driving. So it doesn't matter if you're driving in a city, that'll be proper league matches, or just in the countryside, that's friendly trainer matches, or on dirt tracks, that's Team Rocket matches. You still can't have like a 5-year-old drive. You still have to have the seatbelt, you still have to observe the rules of driving. And it's the same, it doesn't really matter the circumstances. I guess in this analogy, wild battles are like go-karts, I guess. They're sort of completely exempt because they aren't cars. I guess, I don't know, it sort of falls apart there. The other thing is what exists. When I started this, I didn't really have that much of a concept of what did and didn't exist. It annoyed me that they kept making these references. Now I have a better idea of what does and doesn't exist based on origins and the context of the words. To be honest, I'm not even sure I can entirely explain my own logic here. I just know that I do follow a specific logic. Things like puppies and fishing are okay because of the context around the word, but dogs and fish aren't. I know a lot of people disagree with me over this as a concept, even at the basis level, but yeah, there is a logic. I am going to be sticking to that logic, and to be honest, as long as I don't completely ignore my own logic, then the scores are still going to be consistent. That's how I'm going to play this. On the other hand, the thing I absolutely refuse to yield on is Jessie and James's age. See episode 37, where Jessie is shown 10 years before the series, and she looks younger than Ash. I'd say she's around 6 or 7, meaning that at the time of the series she is about 17. She and James are the same age, they're 17. And then in the ultimate test, she writes her age down as 17, when, as far as I'm concerned, she would have no reason to lie because she doesn't realise she's being observed. People are going to pick holes in this, like the Santa episode isn't canon, and she would lie because she's vain. I don't believe that those are enough of a reason to ignore what could be a coincidence, but what I think is logic. I am still 100% convinced they are 17, and really no matter what you say, I'm not going to be able to convince otherwise. For this, I was planning to whittle it down to a single best and worst episode, but I couldn't do it. So I've got the best and worst 3. So, third best episode is episode 19, Tentacool and Tentacruel. This one I knew I liked right from the beginning, and it's just a shame it didn't get a higher score. Because remember, the scores aren't how good the episode is, it's hard to explain. The thing with Tentacool and Tentacruel is, despite all of the innocent deaths, and there had to have been a lot, it does have a very good message, and it also has an even-handed look at Pokemon and humanity's impact on Pokemon. Not to mention it has a nice amount of justified action, with the important bit being that it is justified action. It's not just there for the sake of it. It all feeds as part of the story. Even the resolution is well done, if still a bit wantonly destructive. Next is episode 73, Bad to the Bone. This is a really nice recap episode to bridge the gap between the gyms and the league, and it also takes the place of Victory Road. It has some good animation, it has some very good characterization, and overall a decent plot. But the best episode of Season 1 for me is Go West Young Meowth. It has phenomenal direction and writing, which makes the episode really memorable. Meowsy is adorable, and it makes Meowth's story incredibly tragic and his actions just so much deeper. They did kind of fumble the ending moral with Meowth still pining after this incredibly shallow girl, essentially, but overall it was a very good episode. For the third worst one, this is going to catch you off guard. Episode 34, The Kangaskhan Kid. You're not surprised it got here, you're really surprised it's third. I honestly cannot believe that someone pitched it. They wrote it, it was animated, they voiced it, and then aired it. And they act like the bloody parents are the good guys. It boils my blood a little bit, just a smidge, that they're treated like good guys and pandered to at every single goddamn step. It's the only one I've ever walked out of. Second worst. So that's the starting point. Second worst. Episode 43, March of the Executor Squad. You might have been able to guess this one was in here, because compared to the criminally evil parents, we have the phenomenally creepy Melvin, who latches onto Misty at first sight, dresses her up in a skimpy outfit, and then spends the entire episode trying to get success and money by way of hypnosis. And gets away with it. It's another one with a bloody terrible moral. Basically, if you try and cheat the system, you try and make people do stuff against their will, and, objectify young girls, you'll get away with it. That's what the episode's saying. The reason, for me, this is worse than the Kangaskhan Kid is that is the story of one criminally bad parent and one criminally enabling parent. This is the story of a guy who destroys an entire town and gets away with it. And the worst episode of Season 1, for me, is episode 79, Friend and Foe Alike. This is the worst planned episode in the entire series, and yet serves as its climax. For some reason, they wasted what was a very well set up final battle by filling 3/4 of the episode with Team Rocket and cramming the battle into 5 minutes. I have no idea why they felt the need to do that, but it really ruined the climax of... Because, yeah, they did set it up very well. They gave Richie a reason to be friends with Ash, but still had them both a reason to try hard. It would have been better with Gary, putting it out there. But with what they had, they still ruined it. To bring it up again, my favourite jokes. So this is just going to be pretty much quick-fire jokes that stick in my mind. In episode 29, there was a throwaway line about Primeape, and it showed a picture of Primeape going crazy, beating up Charmander, wearing Ash's hat, and the line was something like, "That's not a flashback to the episode, that's just what happened last time they tried to feed him." And I love that I could put in that kind of joke. Just irreverent humour. To be honest, some of my favourite episodes did have irreverent humour. I'll talk about my overall favourite episode after this, but yeah. That's why I like that one. The Chansey slapping in episode 47, that was just so damn hilarious. In episode 48, the whole sex dungeon thing. My god. But my favourite joke in that was Brock, referring to Jezebel, says, "Every rose has their thorns," and I said, "That's one way of saying beautiful women have sex dungeons," which is a sentence I really want to use out of context at some point. Or maybe that could be the new thing. Instead of saying, "Oh, every rose has their thorns," well, beautiful women have sex dungeons. The next one is in episode 56, at the climax of the insanity of the test. There's the whole thing about the Jigglypuff scene from above, and I go off on a rant about how it's like on your driving test, and there's someone coming down the wrong side of the road, and someone's got a gun to your head. What do you do? And the answer being, you die like a man for the glory of Mother Russia. And, I mean, these aren't in any particular order. They're in order of sort of appearance rather than anything else. The last one in this section are all of the jokes with Mr. Mime is watching. That is my favourite series of jokes that I added later. And my favourite thing about them, and I don't want it to sound like I'm just like really bigging up my own stuff, which I sort of am, but watching through them was fun. Probably my favourite bit about this recurring joke is it is slightly different every single time. Mr. Mime watches you while you sleep. Mr. Mime is friends with your mother. Mr. Mime cooks your food. That's a different kind of creepy. And, you know, that kind of thing where I just started adding a tiny little bit on the end of each one. Mr. Mime watches you while you compete in the Pokemon League. Does that work? You know, I really enjoyed that. The last proper section, my favourite PokéSins episode. This was very difficult. I had about 3 that I was thinking about. I have to go with Episode 47, A Chancy Operation. It has some of my favourite jokes. I gave into a lot of innuendos in this one. I don't know why, but when I was scripting it, the innuendos just came to me. Phrasing. But I feel they really fit the episode. And add in all the cracks about the doctor and the bit about Chansey slapping Meowth, and I honestly think it is the funniest episode I've done. And finally, to wrap up Season 1, here is the total combined score for Season 1. Season 1 scored a total of minus 5,856, not including the 2 banned episodes. And again, not including it, it came out as an average of minus 73 per episode. So when I do other season wrap-ups, I'll compare them against that average score, and we'll see how they stack up. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to carry straight on into Season 2, and I hope you enjoyed PokéSins Season 1. And I will catch you later.